อาบยังครับเนี่ย
อาจารย์ถามว่าจะมีน้ำไหมต้องให้ผู้ใหญ่ไปสอนไว้ที่
Yes.
สวัสดีครับชาร์จได้เลยนะครับเลยชาร์จแบบ
program Competence education, Thammasat University Bangkok, received a PhD in literacy, culture, and language education from Indiana University in Bloomington. The current research interests include economic writing, intercultural communicative competence, technology integration in the language classroom, and critical literacy. So please join me. Welcome,
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for the introduction and for your interest in my topic and my presentation today. Well, I'm very glad to be back here. I taught here before. It's been like 5 years. I can't believe time flies. But today I'm going to talk about the course that I developed as a blended learning course, and I will share with you my sort of practical experiences, success and failure in developing this course. So I'm going to give you some sort of practical views on doing all of this, okay? So before I get started, let me ask you, I assume that a lot of you are already familiar with the concept of blended learning, right? So could you show me your hands if you already, or maybe you are using blended learning now? Well, because blended learning is not a new concept, right? It's been around for a long time. So it's basically a combination of the face-to-face and online features. So there are many models of blended learning. I have looked into the past research on blended learning, and now actually is an exciting time for blended learning because of the exponential rise in online learning, especially at a higher level education, right? So, but all of the past research, emphasize on one principle on blended learning is that the emphasis should be placed on how the program, course, or lesson is designed rather than an emphasis on the modern technology. Well, and as a teacher educator, then I begin to see a wider gap in blended learning model implemented abroad, let's say, for example, in the United States, and what is being done in the classroom in Thailand. I'm going to show you one blended learning model implemented in this classroom. Her name is Kathleen Tucker. She is an author of several books on blended learning. And this one, she used a
home work best, our station rotation model,
station rotation model,
and flip classroom. So station rotation is a model where primarily the learning is happening in the classroom, and a teacher will break up students into smaller learning communities or learning groups and create a series of stations in the classroom. And so that gives me a chance to work with that group at the skill level that they're at, provide one-on-one support as they practice. It also allows me to create differentiated stations. So as they move through stations, I can adapt the task at a particular station so that's really meeting the needs of that particular group coming through.
Okay, I just want to show you a short clip of how one model of blended learning is implemented in a classroom. And well, recently I've been involved with one research project, which is a large-scale project about English teaching in Thailand. And I hardly see that kind of learning teaching in the classroom in Thailand. So, so been thinking, like, because of probably the change and acceptance in our context have been so slow. So I tried to look into the research, past research on blended learning and ELT, particularly in Thailand. So over the past 7 years, and I focused on this. I found 6 research articles here, and what I learned from this past research is that first, most studies took place in a higher education institutions like universities. And most of them involved with something called course management system like Moodles, and also a lot of universities developed their own kind of LMS, CMS. And these studies explore benefits and challenges of using this system. It's kind of web application where you can upload your online materials, your teaching materials, and soon to submit assignments online, stuff like that. It helps you, a tool to help you manage your online portion of the class. And most studies found that students develop better attitude after learning with blended learning. However, there's one thing that's striking most is that the issue of learner's autonomy and the learner's passive role. Like some studies say that the learners develop learning autonomy while they're learning in blended learning or online learning because they could set up their own goals and they could manage to do assignments, on their own pace, their own time. But at the same time, some studies suggested that because Thai students are not familiar with this type of learning, so they cannot, they're not familiar with self-directed kind of learning. So that leads me to my study. So I decided to develop a course called Language and Culture for Teachers. I will give you a little bit of background of this course first. Actually, I developed this course by myself at my institution to respond to the Teachers Council of Thailand's new standard that requires all teachers, regardless of the subject matter they teach, to have the language skills and cultural competency to be able to live together peacefully. That's some sort of the words from the standard. So at my university, in my faculty in particular, then we developed this course to be a required course for all pre-service teachers. And usually, like in the past, in this course is a traditional face-to-face classroom. So usually there was no practice outside the classroom. So everything sort of was done in class and then finished. So and the students had no access to previous past content if the students missed the class. But I want to talk about but in my new study, this study, then I developed, I kind of adopt the idea of a flipped classroom, which is one model of blended learning, and then develop the course Language and Culture for Teacher course to be like a blended learning environment. So the students learn outside the classroom via online coursework and lecture. And then I use class time for guided practice or interactive activities. So students had to learn something like part of my lectures, and I uploaded some of my teaching materials like my PowerPoint and some guest speakers lecture or video clips, and then they had to study before coming to the class, and then in the class and we can do some activities together. So my research goal is to develop a blended learning course to enhance both language skills and cultural competence, so to be aligned with the standards, the new standard. And I want to talk a little bit about my students. Okay, when you think about pre-service teacher, you probably have the image of like a mature, responsible. But in fact, like a lot of my students are from physical education major. So they were student athletes, so they missed class quite often because they had to attend some sort of sport competition. So, and in general, they had like a lower proficiency level, compared to other majors. and they have low motivation. They explicitly said that they don't like learning English. They have like negative attitude toward learning English. So this is an example of some of the units or lessons that I created, recreate for my class using the flipped classroom model. As you can see, I try to create a classroom that would make, each lesson I just want my students to see the interrelationship between language and culture. So that's how I organize my lesson. And then I have the face-to-face class. Like I said earlier, I usually do some activities in class. So, for example, the first one, when we learn about intercultural nonverbal communication, then in class, we did some critical incidents. And then for the online, they had to study earlier before coming to the class, and even after that. I use Edmodo. I'm going to show you in a minute what it's like. But it's a web application that I use to manage the online portion of my class. And then I use some video clips that they can review and some discussion questions for them to think about before coming to the class. And also, the same, in other lessons, and I also use the EPUB global community that I will show you later. And then I posted some online resources, an online quiz, and we had some online discussion to supplement what I usually did in the face-to-face, traditional face-to-face class. And I also developed my own material online, and I can tell you that it took a lot of time to make. Even when I was trying to upload one video of the lecture up on YouTube, it took so much time. Okay, so actually I realized that this should be like some sort of a team effort. It would be better if I have a team to do this together. Well, but I did it alone. So in some units, then I had to create my own kind of a customized lesson to match the objective that I wanted to teach them. So now I want to talk about the technology part a little bit because it plays an important role in my class. Well, I have been experimenting with several web applications starting from MaxLearn. This is what it looks like. It's developed by my university. But turns out that my students didn't like it because it's not user-friendly, that's what they say, and sometimes it was hard for them to find a function to upload their assignments or do some group work. So I moved on to Google Classroom. I guess some of you probably using Google Classroom, and I find it quite good, to manage my class. So, but the problem was some of my students just didn't have the university account. In order to get access to Google Classroom, you need like a specific institutional account. So some students didn't have it, so they just couldn't get access to all the materials. So I had to change again. I had to change to Edmodo. I don't know whether you have seen it before. It's actually it's a great tool. It looks like Facebook that my students are familiar with, and it's called so. It could be like a professional learning community as well because you could get connect to with other teachers, form the teacher network. Sometimes they organize some online, some webinar or some online discussion among educators. So I found it to be great. I haven't explored every feature available on this one, but I use it for my class to manage my class. The great thing about this one is that it has a mobile application. The students could download it on their cell phone, and they could work on the assignment on their cell phone and submit it, while they are waiting for a bus or something. So that's a great function. And I have, they also have a library where I put all of their online resources that I want them to work on. Here are the resources that I want them to work on, like outside the class, to improve, because one objective of the class is to improve their language skills. And the time only, spent in class is usually is not enough for practice. So I include those resources that I think is great for them, like Khan Academy, these are like graphically enhanced micro lectures, and then some free online courses, or even TOEIC practice. And I also have, I want to show you this one, and this one is a research. The last one's called English 24, is actually a research project done by Mahidol University for students to practice English. This one that my students kind of like, because it's entertaining for them to do some popular figures, in high context. So the results, but do you know what website that my learners like to go? So instead of going to those websites I recommended, they prefer, they like to go to the English 24, of course, because it has Thai language. But then they also explore some other resources, but usually it's Thai website like this one, Grace Delivery, or sometimes a page on Facebook, and this one, Blue Box English Room. So I actually asked them to write down the new words they learn every week onto the spreadsheet that I gave them. And then at the end of the semester, I told them, the more words they recorded into the spreadsheet, then the higher score they will receive at the end. So I asked them to submit the portfolio at the end of the semester. So it turns out that they just explore those, these resources, but not the ones that I recommended. And in average, so the students learn 35 new words for the whole semester in average. Well, quite disappointing, right? So that's my student. And the other thing that I did for this class, in order to find out how they learn in the blended learning environment, I did a little experiment on one of the lessons, just one particular lesson. And it's just a small taste of knowledge. And we learn about the English sound system. And I divided them into 3 groups, kind of random, assigned them into 3 groups. One learned through blended mode of learning. So they learned both face-to-face and then online materials. And then in the second group, face-to-face only. So they didn't have to learn the online one. And then the online group, that they learn only the materials from the online materials I gave them. And then I did a post-taste only. And then the mean scores from the 3 groups. Can you guess which one would receive the highest score? Of course, look at the mean score. The blended learning group got the highest score. And then the second one, face-to-face, and the last one, online. Well, actually, it's not surprising, to see that in the blended learning group received the highest score. Not really quite high, but higher than the other 2 groups, because they get to learn both, right? So when I tested them like a week after they learned, so I think they should got the memories of what they learned. So blended, the knowledge from blended learning probably stick in their head longer than the other group. Well, and the other two that I wanted to talk about, quite exciting to find this one you probably know too, right? It's called EPAL. It's actually built on the old school traditional pen pal concept, and now it becomes EPAL. So I started my profile. I put out my profile in this EPAL global community in order to look for other teachers who want to connect with my class. And then I was lucky, after a while, then there was one teacher who were interested in working together, collaborating on the pen pal, EPAL project. But we agreed that we should start with like a traditional pen pal first, so the student got the feeling of kind of real, writing real letters. So I asked them to write the introduction, to the students in Turkey, and then those students send my students their letters as well. So it was a nice exchange, and after they learned about each other's name, they could get connected to Instagram and Facebook right away. And then after that, they could just send messages to each other. Sometimes they send like the picture of classroom in Turkey, this is what is live, and then my student share kind of classroom in Thailand. So some exchange happened. So beside the pen pal project, actually we did a lot of things, in class to increase, because one of the objectives is to increase the intercultural competence among my students. So we did some learning activities, and we talked about stereotype, prejudice, sexism, things that they could see the relationship between language and culture. And at the end, I asked them to reflect upon the experiences that they learned in class in terms of the cultural awareness. This is what my students wrote as a reflection. The theme, I coded their reflection paper, and then one of the themes that's come up in their journal is that first they started to have the openness to multiple perspectives. What they learn in this process to accept the differences, which do not happen only among people from different countries, but the differences among people from the same country or even among people within the same classroom. So this is one theme. And the other one that I found as another theme, important theme in my students' reflection is that they started to value the attitude and beliefs of others, that they feel the need to adjust ourselves to the new ideas that may be different from ours. For example, we should not judge or deny other cultures too quickly. Actually, I wanted to do like the issue of assessment, like Dr. Giadog talked in her keynote speech earlier this morning, and I sort of struggle with how to assess the students' cultural competence as well. So I actually have some information about my learners. I asked them to do some sort of a test, and I'm in the process of developing a coding scheme. And I just want to see whether they change their attitudes from being judgmental, from being insensitive towards the other culture, to being more sort of open and being sensitive to cultural differences, sort of thing. So that's still undergoing. Around midterm, I asked the students to give me feedback, show me some perceptions on blended learning. And then I asked them to write down their answers on like an open-ended question. And I, again, coded their answer and organized the answer into 4 themes, the 4 emerging themes from students' perception. The first one is about the benefits of blended learning. They think that blended learning could actually benefit them, especially when they miss the class. So it's sort of like an extended class time, so they could catch up with the class materials when they miss the class. And the rest are about sort of negative, more like struggle or maybe difficulties learning in blended learning. So in terms of the learner dimension, the students said that they had trouble manage their own time, like what I found, what I read earlier in research, blended learning as well. So they just, couldn't concentrate on the material online when they work by themselves at home. So they prefer sometimes to have the teacher in the classroom, tell them what to do. And then in terms of the task design, the online materials, this is the area that I think I need to improve in the next phase of my study, because they think there's not enough help for them to study by themselves, and sometimes they have difficulty understanding the materials, and no one could give them the immediate feedback on the answers. And also a lot of technology issues coming up from their perception. They talk about the infrastructure problem, slow internet connection, and we are in the digital age. We struggle with the 4G speed connection as well. So sometimes they just couldn't log on to the website. They just had trouble logging in and downloading or submitting the assignments. And even the platform issue, Edmodo, sometimes it's hard for them to understand how the online submission works. So for every new tool, there's like some learning curve for them to overcome. So, well, at the end, I'm going to end my presentation here. At the end of the semester, the students, I asked them to answer my online questionnaire again. What did they think, like how should the course be designed for the next semester? So at the end of the semester, after the grades were done, and they could answer the question anonymously, I wouldn't know who answered that. So 81% said they still prefer the blended learning, and then 18% said face-to-face only. And then 1% said there should be more online activity. So the majority said that, and I guess if I go back to fix some issues related to the online portion of the class, or maybe work on more like a collaborative online project with them. So hopefully that I will get in the next phase. Then I will check the response again to see if they're still happy to learn in the blended learning mode or not. So the end of my presentation, I want to end with this quote. It sort of reflects what I think too, that I became interested in educational technology because I believe that they have the potential to transform how we practice and think about education and learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Malinee, for such informative presentations. Now I'd like to welcome you to if you have questions and suggestions, please let us know, and we will be happy to please go ahead.
Okay, I'm from Cambodia, and we also working on but as blended learning is a combination of physical and online. But when you implement blended learning, do you have any policy of face-to-face and online? For example, what percentage that the students should run in class and the other time they study at home? Do you have any policy, and how do you evaluate their performance in the course?
Well, I actually didn't organize. Probably I didn't limit the time for the online portion. The class time is kind of fixed, right? So the online portion that I developed sort of like a supplement, or not supplement, or sometimes it was like because I think that they would do the work at home or anywhere else that they would feel convenient. So I didn't, the class the lecture usually is not long. You know, the time that they could spend outside the classroom, probably they could spend like 30 or 1 hour before coming to the class. But usually when I look into their behavior, well, I could track them on the Edmodo, and usually they would log into the class like last minute, like the night before the class started. There was a face-to-face class start. So that's, you know, the way they learn. So maybe if I manage, you know, that portion of the online class more carefully, then it would kind of balance their learning more effectively. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you very much. So any other question or comments? Yes, lady?
I'll just follow up on the earlier question. So it means that the class time was not reduced at all.
Yeah, they have to work extra, right? Not reduce. But usually, you know, according to the curriculum, they're supposed to have some sort of a self-study hour, right, by themselves. So in my previous class, I didn't have that portion, so I just add to that to the extra time, so they can practice outside the class. But I know sometimes they came to the class unprepared, so I will have to repeat, you know, what I did anyway in the class, just a little bit to kind of get them to be ready for the face-to-face. And then
yeah, I was wondering about the troubles that students had with technology, because this is something that I've struggled with too. You know, I often believe that the students, because they use their phones all the time, that they're savvy with technology, but then when I give them something to do online, they act like they've never seen the internet before. So I was wondering what sort of problems you have with that and how you overcame it. I was wondering how you overcame these problems with students and the technology.
yeah, well, this is a thing that I had to teach them too. This is what I learned, and I had to teach them to manage their own time. So usually students or university students could get access to the computer lab. You know, this, you know, other than the classes they have to go to, they have free time, but they could go to the computer lab. Or, you know, they could have the Wi-Fi connection. So I had to tell them, you know, explicitly where and when they should work on the assignment online. But of course, you know, since and some of them know and some of them don't, you know. So this sort of thing, I had to help them too. I cannot, like at the beginning, I expect them to know kind of by themselves, you know, when and where they should study. But later on, you know, I found out some of them, because they are student athletes, you know, sometimes they have to go on and they just couldn't find any connection and a connection. So how to help them, you know, manage that time as well. Yeah, but that's still the problem. It's an ongoing problem. And some of them live in the dorm that doesn't have a Wi-Fi connection. So they said they had to use their own 4G connection, and it cost them some money.
Regarding the assessment in blended learning, do we access the online part as well, or
I did one assessment for both. So I assume that, you know, all the two features combined together, then they should be able to get to understand the materials more. So but they suggest, some students suggest as well, but that I should check the attendance, for example, online attendance. Well, I actually kept track of some of them, but, you know, it's not as regular as I could. There are some limitation in terms of the Edmodo too. Like some systems you could see when they log into the system, right? But for Edmodo, I don't think you cannot do So only face-to-face assessment, regular assessment. Anything else? Well, it's quite hot. So hot in here.
I apologize for that disembarrassment, but hopefully, we get it back on. We can be a pretty good. Sorry about that. What's the last question from myself? It's more than that, considering factors well, like I said earlier in the beginning,
I think some of the tools, I think it depends on, it's not, there are some limitations of technology, that's obvious. But I think the benefits of the blended learning were still there. Like, otherwise, they won't respond, 81%. And I interviewed some of them, from their students' point of view. Then they told me that, the extended class time could give them something that they tend to forget in the regular classroom. So it's sort of refresh and then reinforce what they learned. That's one benefit. And also, I think the most important aspect of blended learning is that you have to sort of make it individual, personalized, I mean. So to make it effective, then the student should be able to work on their own pace, and then I should organize the materials in a way that would help, even whether they are good or slow learners, they should be able to improve themselves. So I still think there's an opportunity, I mean, the potential to use the technology. But of course, maybe I'm inexperienced in this, but there are several things that people who want to integrate technology need to overcome. So the design, I think, would be the heart of all the experiences that they get.
Thank you very much. Cancelled,
สองหนึ่งสองอยู่ชั้นเดียวกันใช่ไหม ดับติดแล้วจะติดเรื่องนี้เราต้องทำยังไงถึงปิด
you here for Ms. Ali's presentation? I'm afraid it's not the chance.
ที่เรา
สาเหตุมันเทียบเลย
แอร์นี่ช่างแอร์ต้องถามช่างแอร์เขาลองดูว่าต้องบ่ายยังไงต้องบ่ายก็คือแดงแล้ว
ต้องย้ายห้องมันเป็นความระบบยังไงใช้ไม่ได้อยู่ยังไงใช้ได้ระยะแต่ว่า3 4มันว่างนะบอกแกแล้วเรียบร้อย
ต้องหมุนเหรอถ้าต้องหมุน